Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world. Even more particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Special greetings to our brethren in Colorado, in Kansas, in Georgia, in Texas, in Missouri, and Chicago, Illinois, in Fiji Island, Mexico, Spain, Africa, Kenya, Pakistan, to the United Kingdom, and also to our brethren in Australia. And to the rest of the 144,000 living saints scattered abroad, greetings. May the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. This is our episode number 50, the subject, the chronological order of events. Upon the special request of our beloved brother Steve and sister Corinne, and to the rest of the brethren who are listening and viewing this program, good evening. May the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. Now, I would like to focus our attention to that statement in the Shepherd's Rod publication saying the purification of the church. I would like to begin our study on 1 SR 227 and 228. It says, as there was an important event with each succeeding section at the close of the one and beginning of the other, there must be something of no lesser consequence that would make the change of this section with which we have identified ourselves. That important event is none other than the purification of God's church and the separation of the tares from the wheat. Say Jesus, let both grow together until the harvest. The separation will mark the harvest. Note the verb until, meaning up to. This most solemn time for the one class, the tares, and glorious for the other, the 144,000. Thrust out the section represented by Jacob, and forwards the other. In the last part of 228, it says, though the duration of this last section of provisionary time, entitled Israel, is shorter than any of the periods before it, it is to be the most glorious time of God's church. The prophet Isaiah, looking forward to this time, says, awake, awake, put on the strength of Zion, put on the beautiful garments of Jerusalem, the holy city, for henceforth there shall no more come into thee the uncircumcised and the unclean. 1 SR, page 227 and 228. Now let's focus our attention to the statement that important event, according to 1 SR 227, That important event is none other than the purification of God's church and the separation of the tares from the wheat. So, let's focus to that statement, brothers and sisters. Now, I would like to read to us our page 164. To us our page 164. It says, the words of our Master are in perfect harmony with the typical Day of Atonement, foretelling that it is a day of separating the tares from the wheat, or cutting off of the unrepentant sinners from among God's people, purification of the church. To us our page 164. So it says that the Day of Atonement is the separating of the tares from among the wheat, and it is called the purification of the church. To us our page 164. Now, brothers and sisters, the statement is very plain that the Day of Atonement is the purification of the church, by which the tares are taken out from among the righteous, the cutting off the unrepentant sinners. Now, here's another statement that I would like to read. In 2SR page 216 and 217. 216, it says, in observance of the Passover, the Lord commanded Israel to celebrate that occasion 7 days. Surely no one would say that God commanded His people to commemorate that event 7 days with no object in view. Israel after the flesh, going into Egypt, then out of Egypt to Mount Sinai. The Passover in Egypt on the night when the death angel smote the firstborn of men and beasts at the departure of Israel are types of the church at the present time. The church going out of Egypt, worldliness, the purification of the church, the separation of the tares from the wheat, the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9. 2SR page 216. In page 217 it says, 2SR page 217. As we stated before, the Passover night in Egypt is a type of the purification of the church, separating the tares from the wheat. The crossing of the Red Sea by the Israelites pointed forward to the fulfillment of Isaiah 63. So, 2SR 216 and 217 plainly telling us that the purification of the church takes place on the Passover week. The Day of Atonement and the Passover week are two different things. So, in this study, we can easily discern that the purification of the church that takes place on the Day of Atonement, that is, in the heavenly sanctuary. Whereas the purification of the church that takes place on the Passover week, that is, on the earthly sanctuary. So let us distinctly separate the occurrence in the heavenly sanctuary and the occurrence on the earthly sanctuary. Now, I would like to read to us our page 199. To us our page 199. The statement given here by the voice of inspiration, saying that the purification is on the Day of Atonement. Let me see. To us are which is called the cleansing of the sanctuary, as well as the purification of the church. I'm looking at the page. To us our page 199. What part is that? It says, the arrangement and the scene, as described by John, proves that it is the judgment in session, for it is held in the Holy of Holies. So when you say judgment in session, it is held in the Holy of Holies, or the most holy place. It is called the judicial session. And we already proven that the judicial sitting held on the holy place, but the judicial session held on the Holy of Holies. So let us read again. To us our page 199. The arrangement and the scene, as described by John, proves that it is the judgment in session, for it is held in the Holy of Holies, typified by the earthly sanctuary and its service, in which Aaron, the high priest, officiated in the 7th month on the 10th day of the month. It was called the Day of Atonement, judgment, the cleansing of the sanctuary, or purification of the church, the separation of the tares from the wheat. To us our page 199. So, the blotting out of names, brothers and sisters, which takes place in the heavenly sanctuary, is also called the purification of the church. So the term purification of the church applied into two different places: heavenly sanctuary and earthly sanctuary. But the shepherd's rod is very plain in track number 3, page 53, saying, this startling revelation shows conclusively that the cleansing according to Daniel 8 verse 14 is first of the sanctuary in heaven and second of the sanctuary on earth. So the first one to be cleansed is the sanctuary in heaven. Then after the sanctuary in heaven is completely cleansed, then commence the cleansing on the sanctuary on earth. So, let us focus our attention, brothers and sisters, to the purification of the church that takes place in the heavenly sanctuary. Now, I would like to read to you tract number 1 on page 17. It says, I would like to read the statement. Tract number 1, page 17. As these mighty works are done in the time of the loud cry of the third angel's message, the purification, therefore, incontrovertibly takes place at the commencement of the loud cry. And from this it follows as a logical necessity that Ezekiel's prophecy of marking and slaying must contain the announcement of the purification of the church. Tract number 1, page 17. So it says that Ezekiel's prophecy concerning the marking and concerning the slaying must contain the announcement of the purification of the church. Of course, the term announcement can be easily understood as the proclamation of the message. There must be an announcement concerning the purification of the church. The first one is on the Day of Atonement, by which such purification takes place in the heavenly sanctuary. And the next one is the purification of the church, which takes place on the earthly sanctuary. Since we studied several times the purification which takes place in the heavenly sanctuary, which is the blotting out of names, which will take place on the Day of Atonement, let us study at this time the purification of the church, which will take place on the earthly sanctuary. Let us distinctly separate the purification of the church, which is investigative judgment, and the purification of the church, which is the executive judgment. In the heavenly sanctuary, the purification of the church, which is investigative judgment, takes place prior to the Day of Atonement. And the purification of the church, which is executive judgment, although it is only bookwork, blotting out of names, takes place on the Day of Atonement. Whereas on the earthly sanctuary, investigative and executive, both of them takes place on the Passover week. So, we will be focusing our attention to the subject concerning the Passover. I would like to read again White House Recruiter on page 24. It says, with these solemn words, the Lord wants that the slaughter antitypical Passover. Of course, brothers and sisters, if you will say antitypical Passover, that must be on the Passover week. It is illogical that you will say antitypical Passover, but that is the Day of Atonement. Because the absolute principle, type and antitype, it should exactly fits and perfectly match. And we know that one of the most important event that connects the presidential election of the United States of America is the antitypical Passover. So, let us focus our attention to that subject, the antitypical Passover. I would like to read this reading, saying that type and antitype. Great controversy, 399. Answerer number 3, page 23. And one is our packet edition, page 74. Saying that type and antitype should exactly fit and perfectly match. But here, the statement also saying, given by, I think, Alonzo Jones, that type and antitype should, I lost the page. Exactly fits and perfectly match. Now, let us proceed, brothers and sisters, in this study concerning the Passover week. I would like to read 2TG, number 41, page 3 and page 4. Current events, the Palestine situation, and how close the separation. Now, in page 4, it says, 2TG 41, page 4, the most exciting current event that we know of is the presidential election. That is the presidential election in the United States of America, which stands only 2 days in the future. As the nation sees it, this is now the biggest thing in the world. Even though many will not get what they want, for each one of the different parties has named its own nominee on the presidential ballot, but only one president is to be elected. Now, brothers and sisters, this statement was written November 6, 1948. If you will read the statement, the most exciting current event that we know of is the presidential election, which stands only 2 days in the future. Before, I thought that B.T. Hotep is telling that the presidential election will be on November 8. Because he stated the fact on November 6. Then it says, stands only 2 days in the future. It seems that implying that the presidential election would be on November 8. But the absolute fact is that historically, in 1948, the presidential election occurred in November 2, 1948. Without any doubt, this statement in 2TG 41 page 4 is prophetic, pointing to the presidential election of the United States of America in 2016. And that was November 8. The election of the 45th president. And secondly, we fully believe that the 2 days mentioned here is also prophetic, pointing to the last 2 years of the presidential election of the United States of America. And the third one is that, brothers and sisters, from the last presidential election, there are only 2 years remaining on the subject, the Passover, the antitypical Passover. The antitypical Passover in 2021 and the antitypical Passover in 2022. Now let's go back into TG 41 page 3. It says, I wish that I could tell you all you want to know, but I cannot say how soon the separation, the purification of the church will take place. God alone knows the time. All I know is that it cannot take place before we prepare the way, before our God-given work in connection with Ezekiel 9 is done. Then it will come to pass that the Lord will suddenly come to His temple, the church, and purify the sons of Levi, the ministry. Malachi 3 verse 1 to 3. But those who receive not the mark will fall under the slaughter weapons of the angels, as did the unfaithful firstborn in the night of the Passover in the land of Egypt. Then it says, I am, however, certain that God will not keep us ignorant of the things we ought to know. If it becomes necessary for us to know ahead of time the day and hour of the purification of the church, the antitypical Passover, we will be told. 2TG 41, page 3. If it becomes necessary, it says, we will be told. And of course, the statement, the announcement, in track number 1, page 17. The announcement of the purification of the church, plainly indicating that such purification, which is the antitypical Passover, had been revealed by God. Otherwise, there is no way, brothers and sisters, that we could be able to observe or keep that Passover. Now, I would like to read to you 7 symbolic code. 7 to 12 on page 21. Seven symbolic code 7 to 12, page 21. It says, the seal of the living God, however, by which the 144,000 are sealed, Revelation 7 verse 2, is a special seal, being the same as the mark of Ezekiel 9. Testimonies to Ministers, page 445. Testimonies, volume 3, page 267. And volume 5, page 211. Demanding one sighing and crying over the abominations not only in himself, but also in the church. Ezekiel 9 verse 4. It is placed upon him just before the Lord slays the wicked in the church, so that the angels may pass over them. It is the antitypical Passover. It is the antitypical Passover seal, the blood on the doorpost today. The angel is to place a mark upon the forehead of all who are separated from sin and sinners, and the destroying angel will follow to slay utterly both old and young. So it says, it is the antitypical Passover seal. 7 symbolic code, 7 to 12, page 19. I would like to read first. Answerer number 3, page 9 and page 10. It says here, thus the all-knowing one, he who created the heavenly bodies and knows the very moment he set them in motion to govern the day, the month, and the year, decreed that the holy feast be observed in the very month and on the very day on which they were first ordained. And the type plainly telling that there is no possibility that ancient Israel could be able to observe the Passover without restoring the creation calendar. Or they lost sight of the calendar, the Bible creation calendar, being in Egyptian bondage for 215 years. How much more to the Christian? The calendar was replaced by Pope Gregory during the Dark Ages. Brothers and sisters, and it is more than 200 years. So the statement here in Answerer number 3, page 11, thus was the Lord re-establishing the creation calendar. So, since the first Exodus, they are our only type, I would like to read 1 TG number 7. On page 3, it says, in whom do we find such a parallel? In no others than those who left Egypt and started for the promised land. No, in none others. They are our only type. They are our only type. 1 TG, number 7, page 3. the same. Before God's people could observe the Passover to restore the Bible calendar is in absolute necessity. And according to 1 TG number 28, page 15, it says, this message, therefore, is the one that precedes the harvest of the earth, the great and dreadful day of the Lord, the judgment for the living, the day in which all things are to be restored. Mark chapter 9, verse 12. So according to 1 TG 28, page 15, the divinely appointed time by which all things are to be restored is in the period of the judgment for the living. And since there is no prophet predicted beforehand to restore the Bible calendar or to restore all things except Elijah, antitypical Elijah that is by. Here in the General Conference Special, pages 19 and page 20. In doing all this, he sets in motion the power that is to restore all things. Hence, Christ's positive declaration, Elijah truly shall first come and restore all things. Matthew 17, verse 11. Inevitably, then, without his message, we would die in our ignorance and in our sins, never live to see the restoration completed. So without the message of antitypical Elijah the Tishbite, we would die in our ignorance. Ignorance of the holy feast. Ignorance of the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. So here, brothers and sisters, the shepherd's rod is plainly telling us that the restoration of all things would be on the judgment for the living. And Betihotep died in the period of the judgment that pertains to the dead. In the book of Ezekiel, brothers and sisters, I would like to read that statement in track number 1. Track number 1, page 18 and 19. I would like to begin on page 7, track number 1. From page 17 and page 18, it says, continuing to behold in vision the cherubim and the glory of God's throne, the prophets saw the Lord come to the threshold of the house, the church. And as he gave charge to his angel, who was clothed with linen, and who had the writer's inkhorn by his side. But I would like to read the statement saying, and it came to pass while they were slaying them, and I was left, that I fell upon my face and cried and said, O Lord God, wilt thou destroy all the residue of Israel in thy pouring out of thy fury upon Jerusalem? Then said he unto me, the iniquity of the house of Israel and Judah is exceeding great, and the land is full of blood, and the city full of perverseness. For they say, the Lord hath forsaken the earth, and the Lord seeth not. Ezekiel 9 verse 3 to 9. What is the significance with such vision? Says that, and it came to pass while they were slaying them, and I was left, that I fell upon my face. It can be easily understood that it points out to the movement by which antitypical Ezekiel is their watchman. In 1 TG, number 22, on page 30, it says, aside from Ezekiel, God's mouthpiece, God delegates no other to be a watchman of the people. This statement can be easily understood that the only people of God, that God recognizes them as His, are those people by which their watchman is antitypical Ezekiel. 1 TG number 22 on page 30. Now, I would like to read to you this reading in 2SR page 167. 2SR page 167, it says, the command to mark this company so that they fall not under the slaughter weapons by the figure of the 5 men. Remember the statement, brothers and sisters, that what had been marked? Only one company. And that is why the shepherds had called it sealed as a body. Let us read 12 symbolic code. 12 symbolic code number 2, page 20. It says, let us discuss for a few moments what it is that seals God's people as a whole, as a body. So, God's people had been sealed as a body. Although, in the last part it says, for this reason, the winds are held until the first fruits are individually sealed. And when all the sinners have thereafter been removed, there will remain only the righteous, thus leaving a sealed church, a holy people, that God can put His angels round about to protect, seal against any molesting thing. And they are the men who, having escaped the slaughter, constitute the servants of God, whom He shall send to all the nations to proclaim His glory. Now, ponder deeply, brothers and sisters. What the the type and the antitype teaches. Here in 1 TG number 7, on page 5, it says, "And you remember what took place the night of the Passover? And you remember what took place the night of the Passover? The night before they left Egypt? Moses had proclaimed throughout the land." So Moses had proclaimed throughout the land that in every dwelling where no blood was found on the doorpost, that very night the firstborn in each such dwelling would die. So what is the significance of the blood on the doorpost? That is pointing to the special seal, the present truth. So every movement by which the present truth is not found in that movement, then the slaughtering angel will enter into that dwelling places according to the voice of inspiration. Now, let's read, brothers and sisters, the statement in 2SR page 169. It says, "In that night, wherever the blood appeared on the doorpost, the firstborn, whether male or female, perish not. Just so now, those who received the seal." But there are twofold view of sealing. Sealing as individual and sealing as a body. But before the slaughtering angel began their work, brothers and sisters, there must be a group of people by which God sealed them as a body, so that the slaughtering angel could not enter therein. And that's what it means by the statement given by the sharper's rod in 2SR 167. The command to mark this company. So the statement to mark this company pointing to sealing as a body. They are sealed as a body. The command to mark this company so that they fall not under the slaughter weapons by the figure of the 5 men. Why is it that they need to be sealed as a body? So that the slaughtering angels may not enter into their dwellings. So it says here in 2SR 169, in that night, wherever the blood appeared on the doorpost, the firstborn, whether male or female, perish not. Just so now, those who received the seal have applied the blood on the doorpost forehead. And as the firstborn of both classes, those who died and those who did not, were a type of the present priesthood ministry. Evidently, the type points forward to a ministry in the antitype made up of both sexes. the firstborn who died represent the class that shall fall under the slaughter weapons of the 5 men. What does it mean by firstborn? Ministry. In 1SR, page 96, it says, 1SR page 96, entitled Death of Firstborn. The firstborn, a symbol of a class of priesthood, a representation of Ezekiel 9 verse 6. So, firstborn represent ministry. So it says here, brothers and sisters, that the firstborn who died represents the class that shall fall under the slaughter weapons of the 5 men. And the firstborn who escaped from death represent the class that shall receive the mark of the man with the writer's inkhorn and pass from death to life. Now, for example, let me read to you track number 8 on page 74. It says, track number 8, page 74. As the Passover and the slaughter of the firstborn, first fruits, thus the statement saying that the first fruits, 144,000, will be slaughtered. So here, brothers and sisters, the statement, and the slaughter of the firstborn, first fruits, pointing to the ministry. The same with the statement, I would like to read first 1 TG. One TG 31. On page 9. It says, the firstborn, first fruits, who failed to paint the doorpost with the sacrificial blood in the first Exodus, the type, perish. So any of the first fruits of today, it doesn't mean that pointing to the 144,000. No. It points to all ministry, to all leadership. So any of the first fruits of today who fails to comply with the demands of the message for today, what is the demands of the message? It is to accept and obey the present truth. That is the only demands of the message. So, brothers and sisters, there are many passages in the writings of Sister White and B.T. Hotep saying, let us cease fooling our own selves. For we cannot, and there's also a statement saying, let us stop deceiving our own selves. In GEA Conference Special, page 4 and 5, it says, the serious issue to which these questions give rise demands that we cease fooling ourselves or letting others make fool of us. Let us face the reality. Because we cannot fool God. We cannot deceive God. It is high time now to study seriously if the movement we belong, the present truth, is bestowed by God in that movement. And if it was not bestowed by God into that movement, then we need to sigh and cry. Because the abomination, brothers and sisters, the root cause is rejecting present truth. The unpardonable sin. Sinning against the Holy Ghost. Now, I would like to read again. 1 TJ 31, page 9. So any of the first fruits of today, let us apply the word today, 2021. So any of the first fruits of today who fails to comply with the demands of the message for today will as certainly perish at the angels' slaughter weapons. One TJ 31, page 9. Now, I would like to read again this reading in the Old Symbolic Code. 3 Symbolic Code, number 1, page 8. 3 Symbolic Code, number 1, page 8. Therefore, as there are two separations, there is a double fulfillment of Ezekiel's slaughter. One in the church before the close of provision, and the other in the worldly churches after the close of provision. 3 Symbolic Code, number 1, page 8. I would like to illustrate. So, slaughtering is divided only into two divisions. The slaughtering before probation closes and the slaughtering after probation closes. But it points out to the period of time. But I think it can help to state that the slaughtering before probation closes is only in antitypical Egypt. And the slaughtering after the close of provision is whole world. Whole world. So, that is the distinction. And the other distinction is that the slaughtering before probation closes, which is only in antitypical Egypt, is, brothers and sisters, illustrated by wise virgins and foolish virgins. And it is the foolish virgins that had been slaughtered. Or in other words, the illustration is half and half. Half and half. But here, it is opposite. The illustration is 10 part. or the shepherds had called it tithe. If you will read track number 3, page 65, saying Christ's illustrations are perfect, then it must be perfect. Because God is infallible. His works always spell perfection, even to one jot or one tittle. 1 SR 232. So, let us now study closely, brothers and sisters. What is the statement in track number 1? On page 9, page 18. Although it was quoted in Ezekiel 9, verse 3 to 9. And it come to pass while they were slaying them, and I was left, that I fell upon my face and cried and said, Ah, Lord God, wilt thou destroy all the residue of Israel in thy pouring out of thy fury upon Jerusalem? Then said he unto me, the iniquity of the house of Israel and Judah is exceeding great. So the slaughtering is in the 12 tribes, but pointing to the foolish virgins. Now let us read 2 SR. To SR page 182. It says, thus again it proves that the 144,000 are the 5 wise virgins. I would like to read again, 2 SR 182. Thus again it proves that the 144,000 are the 5 wise virgins, and the foolish ones are they who shall fall under the destroying weapons in the hand of the 5 men. So, the statement is very clear. Who are they that will fall under the destroying weapons in the hand of the 5 men? The foolish virgins. So in this study, let us distinctly separate the slaughtering, brothers and sisters, to the Seventh-day Adventist Church, because it is not half and half. Otherwise, since the Seventh-day Adventist Church today is more or less, there are already 28 million. So half and half, 14 million. Christ's illustrations are perfect. Now let us now study closely. Who are they, the foolish virgins? I would like to read first Christ's object lesson. Although we are not interested, the foolish virgins, the only thing that we need to study is to avoid to be a part of such foolish virgins. Here in Christ's object lesson, 400, let me see. Christ's object lesson. 411. The class represented by the foolish virgins are not hypocrites. So if you could read the statement hypocrites, it cannot be applied to the foolish virgins. Because the term virgins indicates that they did not give any birth. Or in other words, when a woman already married and became a wife and give birth, then such woman could no longer be a virgin. And brothers and sisters, I would like to read this reading in 1 TG. 1 TG number 39. On page 8, it says, since the church as a whole is here represented by both mother and children, we should know what part of the church is represented by the mother and what part by the children. According to verse 17, the chapter concludes that the servants of the Lord, those who bring forth converts, constitute the mother, and their converts, the laity, constitute the children. 1 TG 39, page 8. Then, the mother represents the ministry. So the 144,000 living saints, being brothers and sisters, virgins, indicates that they were not in the ministry. Because if they are in the ministry, then they could no longer be called virgin. Of course, there are two ministries, harlot and pure ministry. But you cannot use the term virgin to the ministry because virgin, brothers and sisters, did not as yet give birth to anybody. And giving birth is pointing to the ministry. To repeat, Christ's illustrations are perfect. In that instance, perfectly corroborating that the 144,000 is scattered throughout the whole world without a shepherd. One SR 222. And secondly, let us read the declaration given in the Bible and also in the spirit of prophecy. Because the Bible is very plain saying, why ye stand all the day a standing idle? Now let's read White House Recruiter. It says, White House Recruiter, page 46. In view of these facts, let us read the upper portion. Of still further importance is the truth that the 11th hour call finds its laborers standing idle in the marketplace, the church doing nothing, their excuse being, no man hath heard us, In view of these facts, it is manifest that the 11th hour servants. Now, I would like to read first, who are they, the 11th hour servants? In page 38, White House Recruiter. Page 28 rather. White House Recruiter, page 28, it says, hence it is to be proclaimed by guileless servants, the 144,000, the servants of the 11th hour. Who are they, the servants of the 11th hour? 144,000. Now, it says that when Jesus Christ, brothers and sisters, told to the 11th hour call, it says, in view of these facts, it is manifest that the 11th hour servants, the 144,000, are not made up of the ministry. Not of those already at work. No. More than were the servants of the previous calls. History reveals the proof that virtually only the idle ones, the laity, are responded first to any divine call. White House Recruiter, page 46 and page 47. I think that statement is very plain. Who are they? The 11th hour servants. They are those who are standing idle. In 2TG 43, page 9, it says, 2TG 43, page 9, this message, the 11th hour message, this message, the 11th hour message, moreover, is to be a layman's movement. Is to be a layman's movement, for the laborers were found idle in search of employment in the marketplace. Here in page 10, 2TG 43, page 10, the question, why stand ye all the day idle? You see this, the statement? They stand all the day. Brothers and sisters, all the day idle. Would you think that illustration is not perfect? What does it mean by all? The entire day. Let us distinctly separate, brothers and sisters, according to White House Recruiter. Let me read to you. White House Recruiter, on page 17. Having thus by the first call for servants solidly established the time in which the parabolical go to work call started, we are now to ascertain the call time and the work period. Let us distinctly separate the call time and the work period. So the illustration in the parable, brothers and sisters, from sunrise to 5 p.m., the 11th hour servants are standing idle. Then God called them to work. So it says here, to TG 43, page 10, the question, why stand ye all the day idle, is very definitely saying that those who are hard are not of those who were already at work, not of the ministry. Brothers and sisters, the 11th hour ministry, when it did exist, points to the 144,000 living saints. So, the wonder in the parable in Matthew 20 can be answered only on the crucifixion or the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. So we need to study closely and connect our subject Passover, because Jesus Christ was crucified on the Passover week. And I stick to what I would like to read this reading into SR. To SR page by which the shepherd says, for they don't, page 18. One of the chief reasons why confusion arises among Bible students is because they do not entirely depend on the biblical expression of the words. They think themselves wiser than the prophets who were inspired with the Spirit of God, and thus wish to correct the words and meaning of the Holy Bible. Hence, finite mortals have attempted to rectify and correct the infinite one, whose wisdom, power, and vision is unsearchable. More particularly, to the very words of Jesus Christ. Now, I would like to read again a statement. Matthew 20, verse 6. Matthew 20, verse 6. And about the 11th hour, he went out and found others standing idle, and said unto them, it is Jesus who declared these words, why stand ye here all the day idle? All the day. How the shepherd's rod explain the word all? In 1 SR 218, it says, the biblical number 7 is used as a symbol, meaning all. Therefore, the symbol does not exclude any, but means all. So, if you will use the word all, meaning all is included. So, the statement, all the day idle, brothers and sisters, it is pointing only to the daylight. Daylight. And how many hours during daylight? Let us read. White House Recruiter, page 15. White House Recruiter, page 15. The truth is now become clear that the parable divides the time of salvation into two equal parts of 12 symbolical hours each. The period before the Bible, the night. And the period during the Bible, the day. Lending additional force to the fact that the parable thus divides time, Jesus declares, are there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walk during the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world. How many hours? 12 hours on the daylight. 12 hours in the night time. 24 hours all in all. But the voice of inspiration says, equal. And the only thing that you could say that is equal, the nighttime and the daylight, that is vernal equinox. Now, let us read again. Answerer. Number 3. Page 15. For the Passover week was observed from the 14th to the 21st day of the first month of the Hebrew year, beginning with the vernal equinox, March 20, 21, the time of the year when the day and the night are equal. So the only time by which the day and the night are equal, it is the vernal equinox. But there is a mystery here. Because March 20 and 21 in 31 AD, the day and night are not equal. Historically. And you cannot erase the history. I remember the statement in 1SR 128 saying, it is engraved on a tile. It cannot be erased. The thought is that the prophecy will surely come to pass. And after it once becomes history, one cannot erase the things portrayed. It is there to stay through all ages. In the writings of Alonzo Jones, it says that history is the true complementary of the prophecy. Let me see. I'll find that statement. Written by Alonzo Jones. History is the only true commentary on the prophecies, and the only true exposition of the prophecies is to set down together the history and the prophecy, because history as it really is but the complement of prophecy as it is written. And here's another statement that I would like to read. Let me see. That if the history does not exactly fit to the prophecy, then that is not the perfect fulfillment of the prophecy. Brothers and sisters. And that's why we explained several times that let us distinctly separate the groundwork. It says, to know whether we have the true historical event for the fulfillment of a prophecy, if you find every word of the prophecy after the figures are understood is literally fulfilled, then you may know that your history is the true event. But if one word lacks a fulfillment, then you must look for another event or wait its future development. For God takes care that history and prophecy that agree, so that the true believing children of God may never be ashamed. Now let us go back again, brothers and sisters. If you still remember, we always read 2SR 237 saying, reason why 3 hours to a movement. (237) in 2SR. Reason why 3 hours to a movement. Some may question the evidence for allowing 3 hours to each incident. From creation to the fall of Adam. And again to Enoch and Noah. If God worked on the 3-hour schedule with the crucifixion of Jesus, so here, the crucifixion of Jesus was attached to the subject in Matthew 20. If God worked on the 3-hour schedule with the crucifixion of Jesus, see on chart on page 22, and the same rule was followed in the period called day, then he certainly would not follow another rule in the period called night. The reason he has followed that particular rule is to present to his church the exact time of her history by periods. So I would like to read the conclusion. It says, the reason he has followed that particular rule. What particular rule? 3 hours schedule. Is to present to his church the exact time of her history by periods. Now, the voice of inspiration says, brothers and sisters, that the interplan of redemption was illustrated by 24 hours. According to reading. So let us read again. White House Recruiter, page 15. The truth is now become clear that the parable divides the time of salvation into 2 equal parts of 12 symbolical hours each. So, the statement is very plain. Brothers and sisters, 2 equal parts. But it is not true in the history. Because the night is from creation to the time of Moses. That is 2,500 years. From Moses up to this present time, already more than 3,000 years. 2,500 and more than 3,000 are not equal. So it does not refer to the groundwork. It is referring to the last generation of men. Because symbolical hours, brothers and sisters, must be computed as stated in the shepherd's rod. Let us read 2SR 216. What made the interruption and brought about the change? Let us first determine the length of the prophetic half-hour time. A day in prophetic time stands for a year. Ezekiel 4 verse 6. 1 hour is a 24th part of the prophetic year. And figuring 30 days to a month, it would be about 2 weeks. Half an hour will be half of 2 weeks. Therefore, 7 literal days. But exactly, if you will divide 360 days divided by 24 equals 15. $360 divided by 24 equals 15. So here, brothers and sisters, there must be 15 days every one symbolical hour. And since it says 12 hours, 12 symbolical hours in the nighttime, 12 times 15, that is 180 days. $180 days. Then another 12 symbolical hours in the nighttime, that is 180 days. Therefore, the 24 symbolical hours, that must be, brothers and sisters, pointing to 1 year or 360 days. I'm talking about in the perfect fulfillment of the prophecy, the particular object in view. Because the truth of the parable has never been understood by any other company except the 11th hour. I would like to read 2SR 234. But the object of the lesson is for the latter who are hard at the 11th hour. For the truth of the parable has never been understood by any other company. The truth of the parable has never been understood by any other company. Never been understood by the first company, the Jewish church, by the second company, the Apostolic Church, by the third company, the Millerites movement, by the fourth company, the Seventh-day Adventist Church. But it was revealed by Jesus Christ to the 11th hour, the 144,000 living saints. The truth of the parable in Matthew 20, by which attached to the crucifixion, that the reason that Jesus Christ followed that particular rule, 3 hours schedule, is to present to his church the exact time of her history by periods. Now, in studying Matthew 20, there are only 2 history. The history standing all the day idle. The history when Jesus Christ hired them, when they began to work. That is very plain in the parable in Matthew 20. And to repeat again, according to answerer number 3, because the statement in White House Recruiter, it says, the night and the day time are equal. And that is pointing only to the vernal equinox. But such vernal equinox, brothers and sisters, is symbolical, not literal. Because Matthew 20 is symbolical or parabolical. Let us read again. Answerer number 3, page 15. For the Passover week was observed from the 14th to the 21st day of the first month of the Hebrew year, beginning with the vernal equinox, March 20. Now, what do you remember? Crucifixion. The 5 symbolical months. From crucifixion to the ingathering of the 144,000. It says, beginning with the vernal equinox, March 2021, the time of the year when the day and the night are equal. Answerer number 3, page 11. Answerer number 3, page 11. And so it is that the Passover, it points out to April 14. That is the only day which is called the Passover day. And so it is that the Passover, the Atonement, or the Day of Atonement, and the Feast of Tabernacles, the 3 most important feasts in the year. What are the 3 most important feasts in the year? Passover, the Day of Atonement, and the Feast of Tabernacles. Besides, other feasts are controlled by the solar year and by the lunar month, the weekly Sabbath by the day on which creation began, and the year itself by the vernal equinox, the immovable signpost. What is the immovable signpost? The vernal equinox. When does the vernal equinox begins? March 20 as April 1. What is vernal equinox? Seasonal calendar. So there are 3 most important feasts. That is, God gave only one immovable signpost inscribed in singular form. What is the immovable signpost? The vernal equinox. So that is very plain, brothers and sisters. Now, let us proceed to our subject. I know it is a little bit deeper. Let us go to the statement in answerer number 3. Answerer number 3 on page 13. This chart enables us to see that just as one solar season matches another, the vernal equinox matches the autumnal equinox. But what is the given clue? The autumnal equinox, the cleansing of the sanctuary. October 22, 1844. October 22, 1844. Now, let us read again the statement. This chart enables us to see that just as one solar season matches another, the vernal equinox matches the autumnal equinox, and the summer solstice, the winter solstice. In like fashion, the sacred feast of one season matches the sacred feast of another season. You see, brothers and sisters, the sacred feast. Now, let us focus to the Day of Atonement. In the Great Controversy, let me see, the statement by which the prophet says that the Day of Atonement at that time fall on October 22. Great Controversy on page, the statement on the 22nd, or can you locate that statement? Great Controversy. Is it 399? Let me see. 400. The Great Controversy 400. The 10th day of the 7th month, the great day of atonement, the time of the cleansing of the sanctuary, which in the year 1844 fell upon the 22nd of October. You see, fell upon the 22nd of October, was regarded as the time of the Lord's coming. But I would like to focus the statement. The 10th day of the 7th month, the great day of atonement, the time of the cleansing of the sanctuary, which in the year fell upon the 22nd of October. So, let us place, brothers and sisters, the statement. October 22, according to the Great Controversy, so, October 22, 1844, it's a Day of Atonement. Day of Atonement. This is Tuesday. Now let us look at, of course there is no other that will match October 22 except March 22. March 22, 2022. Now let us look at March 22, 2022 in Gregorian calendar. You see, it is also Day of Atonement. October 10, 2023. And also Tuesday. brothers and sisters, this event will never happen again because the shepherds had called it a movable signpost. Immovable. This signpost, immovable, meaning it will never be repeated again. That March 22, 2022, Tuesday, vernal equinox, or on the spring equinox, matches to the autumnal equinox. 22, 22. Tuesday, Tuesday. Day of Atonement, Day of Atonement. Infallible proof. Why? Because this signpost is immovable. It will never repeat again in the history of the church. Now let us focus to the Passover. Passover. So let us go back again to the Passover week. 2SR 255. To SR 255. It has been explained that the Passover is a type of the close of provision for the church. So I would like to read again, 2SR 255 and 256. It has been explained that the Passover is a type of the close of provision for the church. And the foolish virgins will not believe the given time. Only the wise virgins. What is the given time? Passover. Let us read again the statement in 2SR. 2SR page 183. It says, as the foolish virgins at last came to the door, it is evident that they obtained the oil, learned of the message, but there had been a delay. The door was shut and they were left out. Now why were they unconcerned at first and very jealous at last? The experience in this instance is about the same as that of the deluge. While Noah preached the coming of the flood, the world paid little attention to this message. But those who believed went into the ark at a given time and the door was closed. There was a given time. But not long afterwards, signs of Noah's prediction appeared, and as drops of rain began to fall, the wicked multitude became alarmed and rushed for the ark, but the door was closed and they were left out. The door that was shut is a symbol showing that provision for the church had closed just shortly after the foolish virgins became alarmed. At last they were willing to pay the price and buy the oil, but it was not a change of heart, only the fear of losing out. Their course of action had left them without the seal. The man with the riper inkhorn had passed them by. What a terrible mistake. What a disappointment. Almost saved, but entirely lost. So what is the given time? The Passover. The given time of the close of provision for the church? The Passover. Now let us read again. 2SR 255. It has been explained that the Passover is a type of the close of provision for the church. Now I would like to read 2SR 255, it says, these coincidences are perfect with the day of the week and of the month, but the one is a month earlier in the season than the other. The Passover being in the first month and the flood in the second. So it points out to April and May. Now let me read to you concerning the purification. Tract number 8, page 28. Tract number 8, page 28. It says, since both of these cleansings, moreover, took place at the feast of the Passover. Tract number 8, page 28. Since both of these cleansings, moreover, took place at the feast of the Passover, and since to all who had not sanctified themselves sufficiently, 2 Chronicles 30, verse 3, Exodus 12, verse 3 to 6, were forbidden to participate in the Passover in the first month, but were permitted to prepare for it and to celebrate it in the second month, that is May. So there are two Passover, the Passover on April, the Passover on May. Numbers 9 verse 11 and 2 Chronicles 30 verse 13. Thereby is typified the purification of the church in two sections. So the purification of the church is divided into two sections. Thus showing still again that there are two gatherings, two sealings, two separations, two companies, first fruits and second fruits. But I would like to focus our attention to these two sections of separations. Purifications of the church. First month and second month. But let us focus to the first month. Because the first month is referring only to the 144,000 living saints. Now, what is the statement given by the shepherd's rod? Let us read again the statement. In 2SR 255. It says, these coincidences are perfect with the day of the week and of the month, but the one is a month earlier in the season than the other. What? It is the coincidences? Perfect. But that statement cannot be applied to the flood and to the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Now let us look at again the diagram. Although I forget that diagram, it says what coincides. Let's look at the comparison of the diagram, brothers and sisters. The chronological order of events, number 210. So, I would like to show to you this diagram. This is the flood. The flood occurred in 2344 BC, May. The shepherd's rod says, I will no longer read, 2SR 254. Noah entered into the ark May 10, And that is Friday. So this is May 10, Friday. And the Shepherd's Son says in 2SR page 23 that on the year of crucifixion of Jesus Christ, April 14 fall on Wednesday. So this is April 14. And Jesus Christ was crucified on the 16th, Friday, and resurrected on 18th, Sunday. But if you look at, it does not perfectly match. It does not perfectly match. Noah entered into the ark Friday, May 10. The lamp had been separated April 10, Saturday. So what had been matched? Only the date. But the day, it did not perfectly coincide. Jesus Christ was crucified on Friday, April 16. The flood of the rain began to pour out Friday, but it is May 17. What coincide? Only the day, not the date. Because the date by which Jesus Christ was crucified is 16. The date by which the rain began to pour out 17. So it is only the day that had been coincide. Both of them Friday. But in the first one, no, it is not the day that coincide, only the date. Because Noah entered into the ark Friday, May 10. And the lamp separated April 10, but that is Saturday. Only the date. But it is pattern number 3 that perfectly matched to the crucifixion. It is pattern number 3, brothers and sisters. Look at Thursday, May 1. Here, Thursday, April 1. Perfectly matched. Pattern number 3 and pattern number 6. Now, I would like to read again track number 5. On page 88. It says, and finally, the only revelation pertaining to and coming at a year, and preparing the 4 angels for to slay the third part of men, is, says the Lord, the year of my redeem. The year inscribed in definite article. There must be a specific year. It says, the year of my redeem. And the quotation is Isaiah 63 verse 4. Let me see if I could find that statement, brothers and sisters, by which Isaiah 63 verse 4 is also quoted. Is it in 7 symbolical? I think track number 8. I'm looking for that statement. That BT Hotep also quoted Isaiah 63 on that reading. I think that is on TOSR. I forget the statement. So let us read. It says, and finally, the only revelation pertaining to and coming at a year, and preparing the 4 angels for to slay the third part of men, is, says the Lord, the year of my redeem. Isaiah 63 verse 4. And this year at which his people are redeemed is, of course, the time of the sealing and of the deliverance of the 144,000. Those who are redeemed, who escaped the slaughter decreed in Ezekiel 9. Brothers and sisters, the deliverance mentioned here could not be the midnight deliverance. The word deliverance and escape is also the same. For example, the statement in 1 TG, number 3, page 10, it says, thus to awaken the honest ones, 1 TG number 3, page 10, thus to awaken the honest ones and to set them free from their Laodicean self-deception and thus from the overflowing scourge. Isaiah 28 verse 13 to 15. Thus to awaken the honest ones and to set them free. See, pointing, brothers and sisters, to the deliverance. But there are two deliverance recorded in the ceremonial system. The deliverance on the Day of Atonement and the deliverance on the Passover week. And the deliverance that took place on the Day of Atonement is more pertaining to a spiritual aspect. Deliverance from sin and sinners. But the deliverance that took place on the Passover week is more pointing to the physical and the material side. So, going back again to our subject, brothers and sisters, the Passover is the given time for the close of provision for the church. 2 SR 255 and 256. But what is the clue given by the shepherd's rod? The flood. 2 SR 183. The closing of the ark, signifying the close of provision for the church. What is the next clue? That such pattern should perfectly match to the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. And we already showed to you that that is pattern number 3. By which the only pattern that exactly fits and perfectly matches to the crucifixion. Now, let us go back again to the statement in Patriarchs and Prophets 539 and the Desire of Ages, page 77. That statement in the Spirit of Prophecy is definitely pointing that the sheep must be presented or offered in the presence of the Lord on the second day of the feast. Now, I would like to read again, 539 in Patriarchs and Prophets. The Passover was followed by the 7 days Feast of Unleavened Bread. The first and the 7th day were days of holy convocation, with no servile work was to be performed. On the second day of the feast, the first fruits of the year's harvest were presented before God. That is on the second day of the feast. And the shepherd's rod says, in the old symbolic code, 3 symbolic code, number 1, page 9. 3 symbolic code, number 1, page 9, it says, any who attempts to prove that the year Christ was crucified, the second feast of the Passover occurred on Sunday, will have to admit that the first of the Passover feast, which was to be celebrated on the 15th day of the month, Numbers 28:17, fell on the Sabbath, the 7th day. So if we will say that the worship is offered on the second day of the feast, then Betty Hotep says, therefore, April 15 fall on Sabbath. Because the second day of the feast is April 16. But the year of crucifixion of Jesus Christ, brothers and sisters, Jesus Christ was crucified on Friday, April 16. Therefore, Jesus Christ was resurrected on the 4th day of the feast. 3 symbolic code, 8 to 10. Page 8. Resurrected on the 4th day of the feast, not on the second day. But this statement in Patriarchs and Prophets is pointing to that predicted event. We explained several times the second section of the Exodus. 1451 BC. The very first Passover. So let us read again the statement given by the voice of inspiration. 485 and 613. A short distance from Jordan, Patriarchs and Prophets 485. The Hebrews made their first encampment in Canaan. Here Joshua circumcised the children of Israel. And the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal and kept the Passover. Because in the days of Moses, it was suspended according to Patriarchs and Prophets 406 because of the rebellion in Kadesh Barnea. So here in 613 in Patriarchs and Prophets, Gilgal had been the place of Israel's first encampment in the Promised Land. It was here that Joshua, by divine direction, set up the pillar of 12 stones to commemorate the miraculous passage of the Jordan. Here circumcision had been renewed. Here they had kept the first Passover. After the sin at Kadesh and the desert sojourn. So, that is very plain, brothers and sisters. Patriarchs and Prophets, 485, 613, and 406. And that is on the second day of the feast. So, pattern number 2. So, the statement that the sealing of the 144,000 is from one Passover to another Passover, and the given clue is that second day of the feast, and that is pattern number 2, and exactly fits also to the statement in 2SR 255 and 256 that clause of provision for the church, which is on the Passover, it must be perfectly matched to the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, by which the only pattern that perfectly matched is pattern number 3. Therefore, that revelation is perfect. Who told us that it must be pattern number 2? The commencement of that Passover as the sealing of the 144,000, Sister White. Desire of Ages, page 77. Patriarchs and Prophets, 539. Who told us that the close of provision for the church must be on the Passover, and it is pattern number 3, B.T. Hotep. 2SR 255 and 256. 2SR 183. That May must be perfectly matched to the crucifixion. 1 month earlier than the other. But the focal point is the Bible pattern calendar. So that revelation is perfect. Sister White told us, so there are 2 golden pipes that lead God's people. The sealing of the 144,000 must be commenced on the Passover, Bible calendar pattern number 2, and it will end on Bible pattern calendar pattern number 3. So Sister White and B.T. Hotep are in perfect harmony. Sister White, the information given by God to her is the commencement. Whereas the information given by God to B.T. Hotep is the close. The close of provision for the church. Pattern number 3. Although they themselves did not know. Brothers and sisters, but I would like to illustrate. The information given by God to Sister White is, this is the information. April, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. By saying that on the second day of the feast, that is 16, so we have 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, then 1. Then 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, then 30. Now, I would like to illustrate, brothers and sisters. The information that was given by God to Sister White, actually, it is in the Bible. On the second day of the feast. Oh no, it is not found in the Bible. In the Bible it says, tomorrow after the Sabbath. So the Sabbath is 15. So tomorrow after the Sabbath, Sunday. And Sister White says, it must be on the second day of the feast. And B.T. Hotep says, the first day of the feast is 15. And since it is on the second day of the feast, therefore, April 15 must be Saturday. And April 16 is Sunday. But Sister White has no knowledge concerning the Bible calendar as well as B.T. Hotep. But without the writings, we will never know. But as the truth progresses, God bestowed unto us the knowledge of Bible calendar. This is pattern number 2. And then, B.T. Hotep says that the close of provision for the church, it must be on the Bible pattern by which May and April perfectly match. And that is only pattern number 3. So the next year to follow is pattern number 3. Exactly fits to the statement that the sealing of the 144,000 brothers and sisters is only 1 year. The acceptable year of the Lord. The year of my redeem. From one Passover to another Passover. So, we have that absolute fact, brothers and sisters. Now, I would like to enumerate one by one the infallible fruit so that we could understand. Infallible fruits. Let us enumerate one by one. Infallible fruits. Number 1, the new moon. So please present the new moon, our chart. Where we could find the new moon. Psalms 81 verse 3. And it is pointing to the Day of Atonement. Psalms 81 verse 3. So, I will no longer be reading, but we will project to you the statement. So, let us project the statement. Psalms 81 verse 3. Then let us read. I am inclined to believe. You're very slow. Now, I would like to please project this statement. I am inclined to believe. Make faster. Then it says, blow up the trumpet in the new moon, the first day of the 7th month, in the time appointed, on our solemn feast day. Until now, there is no. Now, brothers and sisters, that is the first infallible fruit because it is God who controls the heavenly bodies. So where is the diagram concerning the new moon? So you see, brothers and sisters, in 1844, the new moon appeared on October 11. October 21 is the Day of Atonement. So October 22, brothers and sisters, is pointing to the commencement. You see, the divine pattern. One day after the commencement or the commencement of the cleansing of the sanctuary. But in 2020, the new moon appeared March 24. And October 11, 2021, April 2. Pointing, brothers and sisters, to the time when the cleansing of the sanctuary pertaining to the dead is finished. But we have another fruit, which is infallible. Ezekiel 45:18. Saying that the cleansing of the sanctuary would be on April 1. Bible scholars had not been able to explain that statement of Ezekiel because that is a mystery. That is the second infallible fruit. Ezekiel 45:18. This one is Psalms 81, verse 3, pointing to the Day of Atonement. Day of Atonement. Ezekiel 45, verse 18, it says, the cleansing of the sanctuary is April 1. But what a miraculous truth. 1,000 years ago predicted beforehand that April 1, 2020 in Bible calendar is October 10. That is October 10, 2021. What is the third infallible fruit? The autumnal and the vernal equinox. October 22, 1844, Tuesday, perfectly matched to March 22, 2022, Tuesday. This is the Day of Atonement, the blotting out of sins of the 144,000 living saints. And what is the fourth one? Brothers and sisters, it is concerning the second day of the feast. Second day of the feast, pointing to pattern number 2, Desire of Ages 77 and Patriarchs and Prophets. Desire of Ages 77 and Patriarchs and Prophets 539. What is the fifth one? The infallible fruit. The statement given by the shepherd's rod in 2 SR 255 to 56, it must be perfectly coincide to the crucifixion. The flood, which is typifying the close of provision for the church. And that is pattern number 3. And you can read that in 2 SR 255 and also 183. Which exactly fits to track number 5, page 88, that the sealing of the 144,000 is the year of my redeem. Only 1 year, the year of my redeem. The sealing of the 144,000. And what is the last one? Jeremiah 8:20. That it must be exactly fits the end of harvest and the summer is ended. When does the harvest will end? April 14. Passover. When does the summer will end? September 22. So from September 22 onwards, that is summer is ended. And the only years that will perfectly match to the season, it must be 2021 and 2022. There will be no other year. Although, we can add another infallible fruit, brothers and sisters. But these 7 are sufficient enough to convince all honest in heart. Brothers and sisters, that statement, I would like to read that statement. The last passage And maybe it is the last episode on the chronological order of events, and we'll proceed to the image of the beast. Here in track number 8, on page 30, these unalterable truths, track number 8, page 30, these unalterable truths of type and parable and the word of his testimony. So we have the type, we have the parable, and the word of his testimony bring us face to face with the solemn reality that we are come to the time of the antitypical Passover and the cleansing of the temple and to the harvest of the world, the great and dreadful day of the Lord. The Spirit of God bids us with awful solemnity. Get ready! For what? The first one, get ready for this coming day of atonement. Get ready! The second one, get ready. This coming antitypical Passover. And the third one, get ready! The coming, or the first antitypical Passover is pointing to the sealing. Get ready! Antitypical Passover, which is the deliverance. For the first anger of the Lord is soon to come. His wrath is to be poured out and mixed with mercy. And ye are not ready. Rend the heart and not the garment. Early Writings, page 119. Thank you very much for listening and viewing this program. May the good Lord bless you and have a beautiful, wonderful evening.